Hello dear students, welcome to ZD's online English class. Today I am going to discuss how to write formal letters. Dear students, formal letter writing is a compulsory question in CBSE board exam for class 12 students in English and it carries 6 marks. Formal letters of all kinds, be it letters to the editors, job application or any other business or official letters, they follow a definite pattern which we know as the format of the letter. Well, let's now move on to the second slide to see the format or different parts of a formal letter. Parts of a formal letter. The very first step of a formal letter is to write the sender's address, which means the name and address of the person who is going to write the letter. The address of the sender should be complete and accurate. The sender's address is followed by the date. Date means the date of writing the letter. The day of the date of the day when you are writing the letter, and the date should be written in a proper form or its proper format. The date is immediately followed by the receiver's address, which means the person who is going to receive your letter. While talking about the receiver's address, it should be kept in mind that many students get confused whether to write the word to or not. The word to is optional. You may or may not write the word to, but make sure that while writing the receiver's address, you shouldn't write the first name of the person. Rather, you should write the official name, title or position of the receiver. For example, the principal, the editor, the general manager, etc. etc. After receiver's address comes the salutation. Salutation means greeting. Since you are writing a formal letter, the greeting or salutation should be a very respectful or formal one and not too personal. After salutation, next is the subject. Subject is the objective or the purpose behind writing the letter. And the subject should be mentioned in a group of words and not in a complete sentence. For example, in the question which we are going to discuss a little later, the subject is human dependence on technology or any other like that. After subject comes the most important part of a formal letter, which is body or content. The body or content of the letter should of course be divided into 3 separate parts. As you can see in the slide, for example, the introduction, the content and conclusion. The beginning of any letter is important. In the case of a formal letter, the first sentence itself serves the introduction of that letter. Next, in the content part, you will be giving the details of the subject matter or the specific details of information you are going to write. And finally, a sentence or 2 sentences where you will summarize or you will give your subject matter emphasis or you are expectation from the receiver. In this way, the content part should be written in 3 specific paragraphs, in 3 different paragraphs. Next, after body or content of the letter comes the final part, which is closing. Complimentary close means you need to end your letter with yours faithfully or yours sincerely if it is a formal letter. Sometimes it may be, of course, yours truly also, but you need to take into account the salutation. If you have written the salutation sir, then you must end your letter with yours faithfully or faithfully yours, because there should be perfect matching between the degree of formality in the salutation and the degree of formality of your ending of the letter. And then complimentary close should be followed by the name and signature of the sender who writes the letter. So these are some important steps while writing any formal letter. So I repeat once again. First step is the sender's address, where you will be writing the name and the complete address of the person writing the letter. In the second step, date must be mentioned in its proper form, the date on which or the day when you are writing the letter, then receiver's address, the complete address of the person to whom you are going to write the letter, and then salutation means greeting, sir or dear sir, and then comes the subject, of course, which will be mentioned in group of words. And then comes the most important part, the body or content of the letter, and finally the complimentary clause. In case of a formal letter, yours faithfully, or sometimes yours sincerely, followed by the name and signature of the sender. Okay, now next move on to the next slide. In this slide, you will have much clearer idea of the format of a formal letter. I have given some examples against each of the steps. Just look at the step number 1 to the last step. Here the sender's address has been mentioned XYZ New Delhi. For example, the name of the person is XYZ, because in our question which we are going to discuss, the sender's address has been written in this way. So this is, sender's address, then date, then receiver's address, date of writing the letter 13 May 2020. So we have given the date 13 May 2020, and the letter was supposed to write to the editor of a national newspaper. So it is written the editor, the Hindu, New Delhi. To you mention or you may not mention. Then salutation, sir. Then put a comma, and then comes the body of the letter. This is the body of the letter, or content of the letter, which will be written or which should be written in 3 different paragraphs. And finally the complimentary clause, which is yours faithfully or faithfully yours, followed by the name and signature of the sender, XYZ New Delhi. So these are the important parts of a formal letter. Now let's move on to the question, with the help of which we are going to discuss a sample example of formal letter. Please read the question, which is an example of a formal letter. While reading the question, you should identify some important information from the question, which is, first, identify the address of the sender, then identify the receiver's address, and then of course the subject on which the letter is to be written. So if you read the question carefully, you will find that this is the sender's address. XYZ New Delhi is the sender's address, and then the receiver will be the editor of a national newspaper, the editor of a national daily, and the subject is increased human dependence on technology. So this information should be underlined while reading the question in order to save time in the examination. Now we'll see the solution to this question, where all the important steps, all the different parts will be used while writing the answer. Let's move on to the next slide, the final slide. So this is just the model example, a sample answer to the previous question. You can write even much better later than this one. I have just shown the different parts of a formal letter in this example. First, the sender's address has been mentioned very clearly, XYZ 230 COD Colony, New Delhi. Here, of course, the sender's address has been given in detail because this is the exact address of the person who is writing the letter. So this is the sender's address. And then comes the date. The date of writing the letter is 15th May 2020. So this is the date. And then after date, the receiver's address, since the letter is supposed to be written to the editor of a national newspaper, so it is the editor, the Times of India, New Delhi. And then the subject. The subject was mentioned very clearly in the question, human dependence on technology. As I already told you, that the subject should be mentioned in a group of words and not in a complete sentence. So please remember this one. So subject has been mentioned. And then salutation, sir, sir. Then a comma is put. Sometimes you may write dear sir also, but that will be a little bit less formal, so better to write sir. And if you notice the content of the letter up to here, you'll see the content part has been divided into 3 separate paragraphs. The first beginning sentence itself serves the introduction, and then the middle paragraph is the elaboration or the details of the information, details of the subject on which you are going to write. And the last sentence, if you notice, summarizes or it reiterates the reason why you are writing the letter. It is hoped that everybody will see both the points, plus points and the minus points of technology and accordingly make use of it. It means technology in their lives. And then closing, complimentary close, yours faithfully, comma, then the name and signature of the sender, XYZ, New Delhi. So this is in brief how a formal letter should be written. And if you practice, then you will feel very comfortable and you will be able to write any type of formal letter following the steps which I have shown in these slides. I hope this video will help you to write letters of this type in your examination. And if you have any confusion, any doubt, you may please look at the video once again. Thank you.